welcome to this video on the Evil Dead Rise. So we're going to be looking at how much the Evil Dead Rise costs to make and how much box office it needs to earn to be profitable. Evil Dead Rise may be the most expensive film in the franchise, but it positively early reviews have it poised to be the most profitable too. So I'm going to quickly throw up a graphic and we're going to see how much the different Evil Dead movies have made within the franchise, going back to the 1980s. Let's have a quick look at that. As we can see here, guys, so we've got the Evil Dead franchise. This is coming from Box Office Mojo. If you haven't used this resource before, guys, it's a really good resource to look up any kind of box office numbers, opening weekends, any particulars on, financial systems to do with the box office. Really handy. Box Office Mojo, and then just type in the film that you're looking for, and you can find all the box office of past movies. Anyway, so we're going to have a look. So at the bottom, we've got the Evil Dead, which came out in January 1st, 1983. 2,400,000. It was only in 128 movie theaters though, so that's a bit different. Evil Dead 2 with 5,923,000. It was in 310 theaters. That came out in 1987. And then we've got Army of the Darkness. That made 11,500,000. That was in 1,391. So that had a much bigger theatrical run. It was in a lot more movie theaters. That came out in 1993. And then we have the Evil Dead, the remake. That made 54,239,000, and that was in 3,000. So that was by far in more theaters than the other three movies. And it made a $25 million opening, and that came out on April 5th, 2013. So that's kind of the box office run there for the Evil Dead franchise at the moment. And then we're going to go back to the article, and we're going to have a look, see how much the Evil Dead Rise needs to make, or what we think it could make at the box office. So jumping back over to the article about the Evil Dead Rise box office. The Evil Dead Rise is the fifth film in the beloved Evil Dead franchise, and by all accounts, it will be the most expensive film yet in Sam Raimi's cult horror series, begging the question of how much it needs to make at the box office. What remains to be seen is whether writer-director Lee Cronin's reboot can not only live up to its lofty budget, but also become the highest-grossing film in the franchise's history. I think it will, because I think horror's had a massive resurgence in the last few years. I think people are just looking for a good scare and a good time, although I'm really baffled as to why this movie isn't coming out around the Halloween period. I've always wondered that. If you've got a horror film that you're banking a load of money on in your investing, why would you not bring it out around the Halloween season? I've never really understood that. But yeah, anyway, I digress. The Evil Dead 2, The Army of Darkness all had famously small budgets, with The Evil Dead being produced for $375,000. Critics and viewers alike know part of the magic of the franchise's first three films is their gritty, gory, low-budget feel, and it certainly made easy to justify making each sequel, knowing how low the bar they needed to clear to turn the profit. The 2013 reboot sequel of The Evil Dead 2013 earned a much larger budget, $17 million, with Raimi and the original star Bruce Campbell in the producer chairs. TriStar and Sony were rewarded with box office gross of $97 million, which certainly played a role in the budget for The Evil Dead Rise. Yeah, so they brought out The Evil Dead in 2013. It made a lot more money than the previous films in the franchise. And so they've upped the budget, they've upped the production quality. Hopefully there's an upward trajectory. Hopefully the box office goes up for this film as well. They want to see a profit. And I hope they do, because I hope it leads to more films, possibly a trilogy. I would love to see the film in different settings. This one's obviously in a high-rise building. The last one was in a kind of a cottage in the countryside, in the woods, if you like. So I would love to see, maybe there could be an Evil Dead movie, on a boat or like in a hotel or something like that. That would be really cool. I would love to see where they would take it forward. But anyway, let's go back. While no specific budget has been released yet, there's plenty of reason to believe that it will be both the franchise's most expensive film and the most profitable. Let's really hope it is. The Evil Dead Rise's budget is likely around $20 million. While the film doesn't hit theaters until April 21st, which as of this video is in 2 days' time, and I am so excited. It's my most eagerly anticipated film for this year by far. April 21st, 2023. Early reviews indicate The Evil Dead Rise has significantly more gore, action, makeup, and special effects work than its predecessors. Director Lee Cronin himself said that over 6,500 litres of fake blood were used in the production. That is absolutely crazy. In the production, it stands to reason that ratcheting up the action and horror elements would result in a much larger budget. Given that Evil Dead 2013 had a budget of only $17 million, The Evil Dead Rise should easily surpass it. Yeah, but giving something a bigger budget doesn't always mean you're going to make more money. We could take movies like Black Adam, had a $200 million budget. made hardly any money at the box office. And then you have a movie like The Joker, which had a much smaller budget, that went on to make ridiculous amounts. And so yeah, investing more money into a movie doesn't necessarily mean bigger returns. However, many of the budget-friendly elements that made early films successful are still in place, like the relatively small cast. That's really good. I think you want a more intimate cast for these kind of films, which is good. And the use of one primary location. Part of the charm of the franchise is the earthly, low-budget atmosphere, so it seems unlikely that Cronin would depart too much from the successes of his predecessors. You've got a good recipe for how these movies work. There's no reason to change it up too much. Obviously, you want to add some fresh elements in there. That's why they've got the high-rise building. It's a bit of a different setting, so there's something fresh, but it's still something that's familiar to people who like the franchise. Obviously, with the Deadites and people being possessed, and having the chainsaw scene. You saw that in the trailer. If you haven't seen it yet, guys, a reasonable estimate would be around 20 million by the end of the promotion. A reasonable estimate would be around 20 million by the end of the promotional cycle of the movie. Sorry about that, guys. That is still a relatively small number in the modern cinematic landscape. Yeah, 20 million is peanuts in the movie industry. I mean, it really is. You get these, $200 million movies, and then they have a $50 million advertising campaign as well. So 20 million is hardly anything. So I think they'll turn a profit on this, no problem. And Evil Dead Rise will still need to perform well to be considered a success. I think it will. The early reviews are saying that it's really good. So Evil Dead Rise needs to make at least 50 million at the box office to succeed. I think 50 million, if it didn't make 50 million, that would be super surprising. Based on the trailers and the reviews and what people are saying about this movie, to me, not being able to make 50 million would just be absolutely shocking. But I think it will. When all said and done, my estimation is going to be around 200 million, 210, I think is going to settle on. That's what I'm going to make my rough estimate. It's almost a foregone conclusion that the Evil Dead Rise will be profitable. Yep, that's what I was just saying. Especially given the fact that the early Evil Dead Rise reviews are almost entirely positive. I've never seen anyone say anything bad about this movie. Early word of mouth and built-in cult audience and the goodwill generated from audiences should ensure the sequel at least matches the opening weekend of The Evil Dead in 2013 produced, which finished at 25.8 million domestically. Given the prevalence of those early reviews, it seems like The Evil Dead Rise will surpass the 2013 reboot on the opening weekend and overall at the box office, making it the highest grossing film in the franchise. This is what I mean. So you had the latest Scream movie come out that smashed its box office records, and now hopefully we're going to have the same repeat with the new Evil Dead Rise. People are looking for decent horror films, and the good thing is Hollywood can make horror films for really cheap budgets because they don't require that many special effects. CGI is where the expense comes in these big Hollywood films. And with horror films, you can use practical effects. They don't cost as much as, high CGI kind of scenes where you got to spend loads of money. So they can make them for peanuts and they can make massive profits. I mean, you just look at Jason Blum and, the movies that he's made, Blumhouse, they make monies for peanuts and, the profits are really good for their movies. Given The Evil Dead 2013 finished with almost 100 million at the box office, the latest installment in the Evil Dead franchise should be poised to crack at least 110 million. I think it's going to make the top end. So I think not just 110, I think it's going to be 180 to 200 possibly, maybe 210 if people like it that much. With a more optimistic estimate landing it at around 130 million. With Sam Raimi and the cult horror icon Bruce Campbell attached, Evil Dead Rise should be the most profitable movie in the franchise by a fair margin, despite it having the highest budget. So yeah, they're investing a little bit more money into it. It's going to have a bit better production value, hopefully. And I think people will come out in droves to watch this. I think the word of mouth will spread, and from the trailers, it just looks like absolute carnage. Obviously, it's not a 4-quadrant film. You can't really take your kids to it. That's the only problem. So you're kind of limited with young audiences there. But yeah, what do you guys think of... what do you think of The Evil Dead Rise? Have you seen the trailers? Are you looking forward to it? Have you read any of the reviews about it? How much do you think is going to make it at the box office? Jump down into the comment section. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Thanks, guys.